Uh-huh. Yeah.
There's Einstein, Digby. Ruff, ruff.
It's finding him
He's like,
really boring.
yeah.
Just a bunch of metal, no fur or anything. No fur, no skin, just metal and plastic. Yeah.
You hear that, Digby? The dog barking.
Totally unfazed.
I know. Like he's like,
Not
I know.
impressed.
My dogs, on the other hand, are perking up. It's so funny. But they are the kind of dogs that will, if they see a dog on TV, they'll run behind the TV chasing after it. Oh.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Pretty.
Well, you know, Einstein, you are not the big show. No, you're not. It's not all about you. So I'm gonna put you down on the floor. Yeah. Parmjeet, hello. Yeah, actually, Parmjeet came in an hour early, according to Zoom.
I wasn't sure. I tried an hour earlier. I wasn't sure to standard time or daylight time, but this sounds to be right.
Yeah. Well, we're mountain daylight time. Yep.
Okay.
Rebecca, hi.
Hi, Kim. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
How was your day so far?
Oh, great. Absolutely fantastic. And with many unpredictable moments. Yeah. Like any good birthday party. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Of course, I have to wish you too. There's a long list of things to wish, and which everybody has done. To that, I would add a lifetime achievement day. You know.
Yeah.
You
Well,
are
no,
special.
it's kind of nice to have this occasion to celebrate the 30th year of Banff,
Yeah.
because the actual face-to-face celebration will actually be the 31st year, which is not quite as round a number, you know. So yeah.
I've told my children, if you want to be in my will, you have to organize something like this for me a few years from now.
Oh, sure. We'll do that. Certainly. We'll farm out these skills.
Oh yeah. No, they're very impressed. They're very impressed. They've never seen a birthday organized. Not for that matter had I, you know, that you could do something like that. It's like, you know, all the effort you put in the BAM conferences, you put into this. So that's you.
Yeah. Well, no, a lot of it came from Mallory and Cheng and so on. It wasn't just me. And so that there's no, you know, it would be kind of.
I don't know how Mallory is looking so fresh after all these sessions since 7:30 in the morning. You know?
I know it's.
I've watched myself change in the Zoom. I've watched my hair go from smooth to more frizzy as the day's gone on. I've gone through some coffees.
Okay.
But it's been so much fun, and you know, I agree, Parmjeet. I've never heard of a birthday like this either. I didn't even know it was possible. And I think that it's so awesome. I mean, like, I actually wonder. Obviously, we're meeting online largely maybe because of restrictions, but I don't think something like this would be possible to this capacity in person anyway, especially with people tuning in from all over, and you know, being able to meet when it's morning here and evening there, and all this it's so great. It worked out really well.
So Kim continues to push the boundaries in every sphere of life, you see.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you think about what would have happened like 15 years ago if you tried this, the internet connections in Banff in the 90s and the early 2000s were really iffy. And I think Mallory, who lived here, she probably even, you know, experienced that you could get internet, but was was slow, and yeah, it was so. But like the experience here seems like it is from my office. There really isn't any difference, you know. So it's really
No,
amazing.
no, I think we are fortunate because, you know, there are times I go to Italy in the summer and you just don't get the same service there. You know, I expect to see telepathology cases there. You can't do them, you know. So it's just us. We enjoy this in North America. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think part of it is that the revenue of the town, the hotels, everything, you know, is obviously improved if they have better connections, and so that there was probably strong incentive to
Yeah.
fix that. But no, the day, I mean, if any of you who weren't here for the first segment, hello. Listen to that first segment. It really is amazing, sort of the intellectual content there. And it's so general, you know, it's not renal, sort of about living life, right? I mean, how could anybody not be interested in those presentations? And really the one on the self-driving car was sort of similar, right? There weren't any real details about how cars drive themselves. It was just about, you know, the philosophy of what a self-driving car should be for, you know, all that kind of thing. Yeah. So I've been very happy with the entire day. But yeah, I want to say that mentoring is very much a two-way street. And I was probably enamored of the idea of reverse mentoring, of older people learning from younger people from the very beginning. You know, when I had those 5 Oberlin students in January '73, that certainly wasn't one way. I was a very green, minting physician. You know, at that time, I had a lot to learn, and so you know the same has been true. I've really never felt the kind of feeling of wasting time and having it be unfair when you talk to a young person that, you know, they haven't been on Earth long enough to really know anything valuable, that kind of thing. I've never understood anyone feeling that way. It's such a privilege because you never know what the young person's going to amount to in the long run. You know, they could become something truly awesome. So, and the assumption that that's going to be true of every single person that you mentor, it sort of works for everybody. And the proof that you're wrong takes so long to attain. Like if you train somebody now and 15 years later, it's clear that they're just a generic pathologist, nothing special. It took quite a while to come to that conclusion. And, you know, so you can have high hopes for pretty much everybody. And the other thing, the part of the openness that the personality tests uncovered, there's something else too about the lack of conflict with the people that I've trained. I've never had significant conflict with a single trainee, and I understand that's unusual. A lot of senior faculty are constantly battling with their trainees all the time, you know, and yeah, maybe I've just been lucky, but I really can't remember a conflict situation or where I regretted taking a trainee. There was one instance, there was a husband and wife pair who were both fellows of mine at the same time. And they were from a culture where women have very little say in things. And the woman was much brighter than the man, but the man called all the shots. And, she ended up having to do 3 times the amount of work in a day than the husband did. And yeah, so that was frustrating. But because they were a couple and she was quite promising and talented, I just looked upon him as kind of baggage couldn't get rid of. She came with that male baggage, and that was just the way it is. Yeah. But that's one of the few instances of any sort of tension with the people that I've trained. So, of course, that's my report. They may not tell you, oh, I'm tense every day, but I don't think so. It hasn't seemed that way. So yeah, I've enjoyed the whole time. It really has been from January '73 until now that I've been training young people. And as I've told the story many times, it was Robert Heptonstall's fascination with the fact that such a junior person was training other people. Hopkins was training me in my first year of pathology training, and meanwhile I was training these 5 Oberlin students, and they came back that summer, and he said, I think you should continue that. So he teased them a little bit. He called them the children, and so on. But many of the children have turned out well, so it's not a bad
Did you
thing.
ever train PhD students or
What?
PhD students?
I have trained some PhD students, yes. But no, these were undergraduate students, and that's been the majority of the students. Some people get so angry and inside thinking about spending a single moment with somebody who's not gotten into medical school yet. They're just, they can't believe anyone would do that. But I spend a lot of time with people who I think will get into medical school, but they're
Plus
not there.
they can apply their skills to medical problems, if you
Yes.
get them interested. And that's very
Yes.
important, because I see a lot of machine learning, a lot of things coming out. The people who are putting them out don't actually not putting them in the right context, because they don't understand the disease,
Right. So we call that nephrology immersion, just like French immersion, where you take somebody who's never spoken French, put them in a French-only environment, and they usually learn pretty quickly. The same thing can happen if a student who doesn't know any kidney medicine is suddenly surrounded by kidney things. They can pick up quite a lot. So there are lots of standardized tests to determine what somebody knows in renal medicine. Similarly, transplantation and so on. And so you can test the undergraduate students who are not in medical school yet to see how they stand up against medical trainees. And these people stood up pretty well. Ishita Mogi took the ASN renal path course. You probably remember that. I sat side by side, and people really thought it was strange that I was taking that course again. But no, it just seemed like a cool thing to do. There are a lot of important considerations in life that are really long-term. that are not immediate or 1 year or 2 year determinations. And nowadays, when you meet a young person and try to figure out, will they get into medical school? That is hard to tell. I mean, a lot of people do a lot of other things before starting medical school, and then they may apply over and over. So it's not like if they apply once and don't get in, that means that they won't ever get in. It just means they should keep on applying usually. Well, I probably
when did you start your renal pathology fellowship? I know you've been training for the past 10 or 20 years, but when did it actually start?
Well, I trained some people at Johns Hopkins before I came to Canada. So, yeah, I mean, like I guess you would say 1979, that's when Lorraine Rackison joined me as a fellow. I just joined the faculty, and she just came there as a resident. So she was my earliest trainee. When we had a session celebrating my 50th birthday, no, sorry, 60th, yeah, 60th birthday, we called her up and she was very cautious. She said, listen, I have to be careful what I say, because, it's not just I can tell you what the gossip was about Dr. Solez. He was my mentor. I owe him a great deal, it's not like anything I say would be taken lightly or whatever. But I can tell you that right before we started the Banff classification, something very natural happened. She came to me at my office at Johns Hopkins and told me sort of, this town's not big enough for both of us, that sort of my career was getting in the way of hers and so on. And I could easily see that. But I was sort of already planning to leave. I was looking quite actively at chairmanships. And then when we began the Banff classification, she simply said, this is the most interesting thing you've ever asked me to help you with. And I will certainly do it. Yeah. And any sort of competition between us completely evaporated once I was in Canada and she was in the US. It was very healthy from that point of view. Yeah. So, okay, I shouldn't do all the talking. I know that you all probably have thoughts about what you want to say, and I think I should quiet down now and let you do some talking. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thanks for sharing, Kim. I was thinking earlier, I'm like, it's your birthday today, and we haven't heard enough from you. So I'm glad to get some insight into all of that. I know that personally, when we were talking about segment 4 and talking about mentoring and being mentored and looking to the future, those are some kind of things we thought we'd explore. And I remember early on in our relationship, I think probably back in about 2013 or 2014, you'd first introduced that idea to me of reverse mentorship. And I guess one thing I realize now is it's not really reverse, it's just mentorship. I think it's more of the preconceived notion that the mentor would be older that kind of causes us to think it might be reverse or whatever. But really, it's so true. Like, anybody can mentor anyone. And I teach on faculty at MacEwan in the Department of Music, and I tell my students all the time, I learn as much from them as they do from me, if not more, because with every not only the experience of teaching a diverse set of students, but also with different skills and different challenges, and but also just what their insights are as they've come up in a different music industry than I did, and make different observations and cultivate different skills. And so it's fascinating because in my work I'm watching my students now who are getting famous on TikTok with music accounts. I've never been on TikTok, but like it's so eye-opening in some of those ways of just the shift in the industry. And if it weren't for the kind of variety and age and different experience, I would very likely or potentially just kind of keep doing what I know. And so I think it's pretty amazing to be able to always be dancing between teaching and learning pretty much every day in any field of education. And I know with Kim and I, what was interesting is that we have worked together, not really in a formal sense where it's not like I was ever a student of Kim's or anything like that. But I feel like if I can speak for both of us, I think we've learned a lot from each other over the years.
Sure.
And I think that one of the things I was reflecting on, and you mentioned it already today and in this segment, is your openness. And I know we talked about that earlier in the first segment today about the personality testing Kim recently did and the off the charts openness. And I think for me, that's one of the most wonderfully refreshing things about you that is so rare, and especially rare in academia, in my experiences. People who come to every experience with such hope, as Taryn was talking about earlier, and such openness to any experience, largely positive experiences. And with that openness, I think, is a readiness to learn. There is no preconceived notion of I'm going to be the one who teaches around here. It's really mutual and always an active exchange, and I appreciate that about you so much. And yeah, so I think that as I was reflecting on this, the openness really did come to mind. And also I wanted to share just something else I've learned from you in this sort of informal mentorship, I guess, is just your multitudinous set of passions. Like, you are so interested in so many things. And I know when we were chatting about a bio for you earlier this year, you said one that had come up for you in a previous bio, a line was interested in everything. And I think that's very largely connected to your high level of openness. But I really relate to that and find it affirming to see it in someone as successful as yourself, because I too feel like I'm interested in everything. I'm a musician who's wound up singing about AI, and I like, things I never thought I would do. But Kim sparked my interest, and yeah, it just goes to show, like, while your work is so much of your life, in some ways you're also such a consistent patron of the arts, so greatly supportive. You take up new things, you take improv classes, poetry lessons, whatever, always challenging yourself to step out of that comfort zone, and pick up new interests without ever feeling like I don't have space for that, or that's too much. How can I possibly also add poetry to my resume or my set of skills? And I find that really inspiring. And those are just some of the sort of lessons that I was reflecting on that you've definitely taught me, regardless of it being maybe not a formal mentorship in the similar way it has been with students you've advised. But
it comes down to a simple formula, really. If you are conforming, if you're doing the same thing that others around you are doing, then there's enormous competition. And you have to work really hard to be on top, right? If you follow a different path that nobody else has followed before, there's no competition. There's no metric for how quickly you should get things done. Nobody knows because nobody's done it before, right? So the idea that doing something no one's done before is really hard, doesn't properly consider the possibility that doing something no one's done before instead of doing something where there's immense competition is actually maybe easier. You know, it means starting with the possibility that you could actually succeed, because you'll get very, very depressed if you think you're working on something where you obviously won't ever succeed. But I think the other thing maybe about openness is liking surprises. And I suppose a lot of people live in fear of surprises, because if you're following a set path that many other people have followed, you sort of have an idea where you are on that path, then surprises are bad, right? They make the future less predictable and so on. But for me, surprises usually bring new information, new opportunities, you know, and so they are consistently a good thing in the life that I've ended up leading. And then you find that a lot of the competition falls by the wayside when something brand new in medicine comes in. You hear a lot of people around you saying, do we have to learn this? Like medicine was a trade, like putting horseshoes on horses, right? And you know, once you know how to do it, you never have to learn anything more, right? Just get more horses, more horseshoes, and your life is set for the rest of your life. I never thought medicine was like that. I liked medicine because of the intellectual challenge, right? So, and so like at many pivotal times in my life, there was an obvious opportunity there, something that needed to be done. And many people said, oh, that's too complicated. I don't think that has had anything to do with whether you pick up the challenge. You don't need to understand how to succeed at the challenge at the moment that you started. You just have to feel that, you know, there's some likelihood you could succeed here somehow, and you pick up the skills along the way, and so on. So, and that's happened over and over. I mean, as you might imagine, before Banff, transplant pathology was in a real mess. There were these rumors that a lot of, you know, pathologists would name every condition in the book when they say, well, what could this be? And they start naming 10, 20, 30 things, you know? So there were real opportunities of other sorts. You know, the earthquake in Yerevan, Armenia in 1988, it was a crazy situation, but so much to learn. So the casualties, the number of people injured from the inappropriate human response to that earthquake was worse than the earthquake itself. So people sent planes full of birth control pills and vitamins, things that nobody needs in an earthquake, as a tax write-off, and then the plane would crash on landing at the airstrip because, you know, the earthquake in effect. Anyway, you can imagine it. So yeah, it was just amazing how much of the human suffering that earthquake brought about was because of people trying to make a buck from the fact that there had been an earthquake, you know, and so there too, why did I end up running that post-earthquake disaster relief task force? Every renal clinician thought it would be a career killer to take that on. They had the clinical skills, you know, but they thought that their future lay in the research that they were doing, the clinical service in their own hospital. The idea that you would leave your own country and go somewhere where there was an earthquake and provide medical care just didn't fit. So they ended up with the person without clinical training running this worldwide for 4 or 5 years. It's the most remarkable thing. So I'm chairman of pathology at the University of Alberta. It's a full-time job, but it doesn't mean you need to be working on it every moment. So when an earthquake would occur, I would just stop doing everything else I was doing, just focus on the earthquake, you know? And there were some things that came very close to happening. There's a big earthquake in Iran. And so I had the phone number of the Iranian mission at the UN in New York City. So I called them with an offer to help. And they arranged for a big Iran Air 747 to be put to my disposal. Only problem was I didn't have anything to put in it, you know. But it was amazing to see that kind of partial success, you know, as an indication. And we did a lot of stupid things that meant that we never got there in time. But then in Turkey, in 1998, there was an earthquake in a zone that had one before, and so on. So for the first time, we got there in time. We brought the mortality down from 50%, in other words, half of the people dying, to 15%, and really provided great benefits. So that was wonderful to see. Yeah, so there are a lot of opportunities like that where there was no search and selection committee. It isn't like I was one of the candidates and, you know, people hemmed and hawed and said, well, should it be Solez? Should it be somewhere else? There were a lot of these situations where I sort of said, I can do it. And I ended up doing it without any formal consideration of other candidates. And you think in the modern world that that's just not possible, but it is, I think, because of this fear of the unknown, fear of brand new things. You know, a lot of people wouldn't take on something if they haven't done something similar to that in the past.
Kim, may I jump in with a question?
Sure.
I'm sort of pivoting back to an earlier part of this conversation, so feel free to come around to this later. But I'm also curious who your greatest mentors were.
Yeah, well, I
Or
guess what's interesting about that is in a very long career, you come to this sort of deeper, more nuanced understanding of sort of the pros and cons of the people who have mentored you. For instance, take Robert Schreier. Robert Schreier was a very powerful renal clinician and very important in my life at many different points. It was he who said that I should be chair of NKF cybernephrology in perpetuity. In other words, forever. Yeah, pretty unusual. It's not an idea I ever would have had, that I would have any role in perpetuity. Well, how should one consider him? At the University of Colorado, where he was, they made a command decision to move the medical school at a time when he was chair of medicine. He was strongly opposed to the idea of physically moving the medical school. And he fought this in the courts. And for a lengthy time, if you searched anything having to do with his name, it was all about that court battle, which he obviously ultimately lost, and the medical school was moved and it functioned fine in its new location. But now, 2021, when he has recently died, you can't find anything about that court case, absolutely nothing. And everything about him is what he would have wanted, the world to know, what he did in renal medicine and even things directly related to my own activities. So in the long run, his legacy looks strong, but there certainly were times when you wondered whether, what was the location of the medical school that important that he would put his entire reputation on the line like that? Well, of course, that's just how it looked. I don't think that is really how it was. He also was a spectacular sports star, setting many records that have never been bettered later. And so when he was in college, he didn't do any homework in the evening. Basically, the evening was all for sports. He just did whatever homework he could during the day, and then, traveled to various games and all this kind of thing. So when he went to medical school, it made a huge difference because he realized he couldn't be a sports star and also learn medicine at the same time. So for the first time, he actually studied in the evening and that sort of thing. So anyway, he was one very inspiring person. But I think for everybody who has influenced me, there are various ways in which they were not an ideal model. And I'm sure I am also not an ideal model for somebody else. So, it depends upon how long your sample is, right? If your sample of somebody is a few years, then they can look pretty perfect. If your sample is like 50 or 60 years, then there's some pluses and some minuses for most people. Lillian Stryker is a very interesting example for me. I've talked about how brave Pooja is, but she was brave in a completely different way. She visited me at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And as we were riding around in the car, she turned to me and said, "Kim, never reject the idea of making a really big change in your life. Going to a new country, learning a new language, completely starting a new life." I thought, what kind of crazy talk is this? But she did all that. She left France. She started a new life in the US. And so it shows you sometimes from a mentor, you can get what seems like very inaccurate advice for you, or not very good advice for you, but it's what the person themselves is actually planning to do. So, yeah. So would some of the rest of you like to talk? It's, I've been dominating the conversation here for 40 minutes.
Yeah, I know that you mentioned, Kim, that Rebecca and Ching had both said they might chime in with some reflections on that, the mentorship or relationship you've had with them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if one of you wants to share first, but just to open the floor.
Sure, I can go ahead, Kim. Yeah. I'm a pretty succinct speaker, so hopefully this will be pretty brief. Thanks, Kim.
I'm gonna ramble, so.
All right, sure. I'll let everything go by on my end before I let you have the floor, Ching. Okay, so Kim, yeah, thanks for having me as your mentee / mentor for the last year and a half or so. It was pretty interesting. I think we started off on the right foot by treating each other as equals. Obviously, I like the interactions we have on a daily basis. It's not really often that you get to, call each other by first name basis, especially when you are probably 45, 50 years my senior and a lot more experienced than I am. So I'm thankful for that. Yeah, I enjoy our talks on a daily basis. It doesn't always have to be about, medicine or renal pathology. Just having a good conversation with you once or twice a week really, really helped me through the COVID pandemic. So that was really nice. Yeah, so thank you for that. And, I hope our relationship lasts for a long, long time.
No, I think it probably will. I would say somebody that you pick up plants with is probably in your life for a long time. You don't do that with too many people. And that was so efficient. Hey, you had about an hour for that, and we did it in about 40 minutes, and the plants are thriving. So that was one highly efficient non-medical thing that we did. So yeah, very, very good. Okay, thank you for that. Ching, do you want to tell us the truth about the way we met and stuff?
All right, so I thought to commemorate Tim's birthday, I would tell the story of our meeting, and here it goes. So it was February 6th of 2020, and I was a medical student in my last year of medicine. And what you do in that last year of medicine is you apply to your potential future programs where you are going to spend the rest of your 5 years studying to become a physician of this specific specialty. And so I decided that I would apply for pathology and that I would apply across Canada for pathology. And I submitted my request to get a slot for interviews. And one of the interviews that I got was at University of Alberta. But just to understand kind of the brief history of my knowledge of Kim before meeting Kim, one of the things I did in my pathology rotation to try to impress my home university was give a presentation on transplant pathology. Because at the time I was working on a project related to transplantation, so I thought, why don't I talk about transplant pathology? So I actually had bought a book from the library, and it was called Transplantation Pathology, and I'm reading through this textbook, and spending hours and hours and hours. And I gave that presentation where I was talking about the kidney and about BAF classification and the criteria of BAF. I thought it was great that I had all this knowledge. And fast forward, I'm writing all of my letters to different schools, including University of Alberta, and I'm saying, so okay, to be like that perfect gutter student, I thought, look up the faculty, say something special about the school, which I do for every school. And when I get to University of Alberta, I'm like, wow, okay, they're very specialized in transplant pathology, which I thought was really cool. And I'm looking at stuff, Kim Solez, and I'm search them up on Google, which I did. And I'm like, oh, interesting. This guy's name keeps popping up on these classification papers. Who is he? And he's got a distinctive name, so it's stuck. It's like this Kim Solez name keeps coming up. And that's how I fell on his Wikipedia page, which later I learned is his own nation too. So his propaganda worked. That's how I learned about everything that Kim did. It's like, wow, this is the founder of the BAM classification that I just spent hours working on and presenting. I gotta meet this guy, I would love to know more about him. And this is a quote from the letter that I dug up. During from my actual letter, my personal letter to Alberta saying I want an interview. It says, During my last pathology rotation, I gave a presentation entitled Transplantation Pathology, Renal Grafts, for which I extensively studied the graft classification for kidney allografts. I was thrilled to learn that these internationally recognized criteria result from the trailblazing leadership of Dr. Kim Solez from your faculty, founder and chair of the background allograft. So with that, I come to Alberta, and it's an interesting trip because I go from the West Coast all the way towards center. And it's on February 6th, I have my interview. And when we're having that interview, you know, we've got tours in the school and the faculty facilities, and the residents are showing us the private. And this is when we walk by this huge office that has like these glass canes, and inside I'm just looking, and everyone's like looking. There's like it's all this stuff in this room, right? It's so colorful, and I'm like, I'm looking, and there's like a giant pink panther, and there's like a unicorn head. It's like a blue unicorn. And I'm like, whoa! And so I was like, oh, that's Kim Solez's office. And I'm like, oh my god, this is Kim Solez's office. And Kim was actually in the office reading a newspaper in that office. Oh my god, it's Kim Solez. I gotta meet him after this interview. Fast forward, interview is done, and it's about 2 p.m. And all this time I've been trying to like memorize how to get back from the pathology department to this other annexed pavilion that we're actually interviewing. So I had to like make sure that I found my way back, and I always get lost. I got this direction. Great, I made it back to the pathology room, you know, in the pathology department. And I go to the room, and there's no Kim. It's empty. And it's about 2 p.m. I just look like, what's going on? I don't know what to do. And I feel kind of awkward. I'm like this like creepy stalker person, like just showing up. What do I do? And so the rest of the time is I go and I hide in this cafeteria that's close by. And I keep popping in. I was like, is he ever gonna come? I even asked someone who's just I guess in the reception, oh, someone's there. And he said, oh, he might be giving a course. And at the same time, I have a plane to catch that night to go to Calgary for the next interview. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh no, I don't want to be late for that. It's still relatively early, but I need to catch a bus. I need to get to the airport. Do I stay? Do I not stay? What do I do? What if I leave? I'll never meet this person. It's a once in a lifetime chance, right? And what also makes this very interesting is that the reactions I got from people when I said, oh, I would love to meet Kim Solez, I got encouraging, oh, yeah, you know, of course, he's friendly. I got this like, it's like this weird like look that like one person gave. So like there's already this intrigue and giant traffic lights that were, it's like there's just so much intrigue. And I'm like, okay, it's like 4, you know, it's starting out late, it's like 4:30, and I'm just like, oh, I've like gone like 3 or 4 times, and I'm just like an absolute creep by now. Okay, maybe if it doesn't work by like maybe this next time, maybe I'll consider leaving. And turns out Kim was there that final time where I was like about to give up. And that's for our mentorship. That was really powerful that I go in and everything that we kind of talked about. It's really surreal and just so open-minded. Kind of got to hear him talk. Learn the story about the unicorn head. Story about driving home. Something about his mother. His mother passing away. How that drive was like a mystical encounter, if I remember right. There was also the giant traffic light that his colleagues gave him rewired to be lit, but the traffic light is actually really big. If someone that knew how to use it, the traffic light is actually the only one smaller because it's super high. So all this is like amazing, and I'm like, I'm so glad I stayed. I'm so glad I got to meet him. And afterwards, Kim come out to me and continue exchanging, and that's kind of how the relationship started. But I'd like to echo Mallory. Kieran has such an open-minded way of thinking, but so much. And I think he thinks in a daring way that most people don't listen to. You're too crazy, your thoughts are too crazy, your ideas are too hard, or whatever. Kids, it's none of that. It's like you just go and fights, and you're not worried about fights and people's judgments. It's been very inspiring. I was surprised to know that he's more interested in talking about AI than talking about that. So that was an interesting surprise that someone pointed out how people are like, oh, you know, I'm like, this is like dead and all of that. And then he doesn't really have that sort of I am this and respect me, you know, really feel like you're talking on par with someone. And leaving that day, I wanted to give him a gift. And I was like rummaging through my bag, like while I was meeting someone else. The day before, I had gone to the cat cafe in Edmonton, and I'd gotten a bunch of trinkets. So I gave him like a card with like a cat that's kind of like this. You see it, but it was kind of like an embroidered cat sticker. So he has like another set, it's like cat, travel cat or something. That's still in his office. So
It is, yeah.
Sum it up, if you ever want to find a mentor, just go for it, be a creep, stay in his office, like wait in front of his office for 4 hours, and it'll happen, and it'll be great. Thanks so much, Kim, for your learning.
Oh, you're very welcome. That yeah, that day of February 6th came as a complete surprise to me. And it was a very busy day. I had already organized some pretty unusual things. We had a tech in the EM lab who had decided to leave and had told Dr. Mengel, the chief, that she was leaving and so on. And I had this plan of intervening to get her to stay by offering her a research opportunity that was so, you know, appealing and flexible that I thought she could not possibly turn the offer down. And I was right about that. I mean, and the strange thing was, I planned to relay this to her in a very relaxed way, but because Ching had already been there and was coming back, was sort of standing outside the door, telling her this proposal for how she is going to uniquely be working with me to define the electron microscopy of tissue engineering pathology for the first time, and sort of put her name in lights and so on. And although that hasn't happened, her strong interest in leaving us seemed to completely evaporate after that talk that I had with her. So it was just very interesting. Those two things occurred in the same afternoon, and I think she probably did wonder what the heck was going on with me, since I'd never had an approach like Cheng's approach to me ever in my life. I also wasn't sure what was going on in my life. But anyway, there was another sort of favorable omen, which was that Cheng was from Montreal, and so was Leonard Cohen. So, there had to be something good happening there.
Yeah, and I got the Leonard Cohen photo. That was also one of the memorable early moments.
Yeah, no, that's turned out well. So, Pooja, do you have things that you'd like to tell us about mentoring from your point of view?
Yeah, it was a very good opportunity for me to to know about Dr. Solez, and
with him, I didn't only learn about kidney pathology, but there were a lot of things that I learned from him, like the philosophy of life and the future of medicine and all. So those 2 years was a very big opportunity for me. And not just Dr. Solez, I had another mentor also, Ishita. So when I have to talk about mentors, I would like to talk about both of them, because even though she was younger than me in age, like there were so many things that I learned from her. And like even though she was not a medical person, not a physician, but like she was so good in renal pathology that she taught me a lot of things. So I will be always grateful to her also. And for Dr. Solers, not just like he didn't only teach me and the fellows renal pathology, but he also gave us the opportunity to attend his course. So from that course also we learned a lot about things things and life and so many other things, and we had opportunities to like meet so many other people in the course. So it was a big thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, great. No, it was a very nice experience for me. I think it's a challenge for any man to really know what motherhood is like. And yet I got a very big dose of that, because you came with a very young child who was
Yeah.
sick, not
Yeah.
seriously ill, but
Yeah.
sick
Yeah.
when you guys arrived.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was
Yeah.
just,
No,
I,
actually, at first, like I was not like sure if I should be taking my kid or not. But then this fellowship was also so important for me, so I didn't want to like compromise in either of them. I wanted to do the fellowship, but I didn't want to leave my child behind, because like it would be like doing injustice to him. So I brought my child along, but thankfully my husband could also come, and he also got into fellowship, and like everything was easy. So like when I talk about my fellowship over here, everyone says that how could you manage like taking your kid with you? But thankfully in Canada there are like good daycares there. So initially we didn't get a good van, but later like we got a good van, really good van for my kid. So it was easy for us, like because the whole day he used to go to daycare, and then like in the evening he used to be with us. So like it was easy that way. So like yes, now when I think about it, like I feel like I don't know what, like it was a good decision taking him or not, but like as a mother I feel I will not have to live with that guilt that I left him behind and then went. So yeah, it was
yeah.
good.
Well, you know, I think there was some special magic going on there, because if you think of my status in spine surgery, I have no status, right? And that's especially that your husband was in, but the letter that I wrote supporting his fellowship
Yeah,
worked
yeah,
so
yeah.
well. It's
And
like,
doctor, yeah, like Dr.
yeah,
Solez also recommended my husband to like the chief of neurosurgery. So like he wrote a recommendation, and then that's how my husband also got the fellowship. It was a clinical fellowship. So like it was a very big, like life-changing achievement for us. So we will always be grateful to Dr. Solez for everything that he did for us.
so we had a dinner, probably something that in the post-COVID era won't occur for a long time now. But there were 2 tables of 8, and so that would be 16 people. We actually had 17 people. And it turned out that Dr. Mengel and Pooja and her husband and her son and the older people there were all at the table with Dr. Mengel, and the younger people were all at the table with me, and everybody was happy. Dr. Mengel was so happy to be talking with Pooja's husband, and he also learned a lot about spine surgery that he never knew before. And it just seemed like a perfect social event where everybody there just enjoyed themselves immeasurably. And I think it's just a very nice thing that happened.
Yeah.
So many people independently emailed me after the event about what a great success it was. That doesn't happen very often. Usually people just sort of disband at the end of a dinner. That's it, you know? So, yeah. So, well, thank you for that. Pooja. So we're 1 hour into the session. So I wonder if either Parmjit or Julinor have any reflections on the impact of Kim or the impact on Kim or whatever.
Yeah, of course, I have greatly benefited from your contributions to the field. I mean, I use it every day. I'm one of the many centers which regularly uses the classification. This classification has played a huge role in my career. I think many of the reasons why I am, known a little better than the average pathologist is because I was able to contribute to the development of knowledge in the
Right.
BAM field. And just watching you conduct conferences, get opinions together, reach consensus amongst people who had very different opinions on very difficult subjects. I mean, that was an educational experience for me as well. So you have made tremendous contributions to renal transplant pathology, and we look forward to many, many more productive years from you. There's much to do, and we look forward to your leadership.
There is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you want to think about it simply, if you compare transplant pathology and tissue engineering pathology, before Kim Solez, there was Bob Colvin. He was a well-known figure in transplant pathology. So when the BANF classification began, we were not really starting from zero. We were starting from an established point of having things already accomplished. Whereas tissue engineering pathology, the pathologic changes seen in stem cell generated organs and so on, that will be something brand new. So in a way, the start of that is more exciting than the start of BANF in 1991. So I'm looking forward to that very much.
I'm also grateful to you for having shown me one of the most beautiful parts in the world, BANF.
Yes.
It's a really spectacular place to visit and engage intellectually. And I wouldn't have even ever perhaps gone there, but for the BANF conferences.
Yeah. Well, it came about through many accidental things. I think my wife identified it as a good place for a meeting because she had been there for a meeting, and we were there on Easter Sunday. Well, of course, no place would be open. No, they had a conference that was running on Easter Sunday, so we were able to walk right in and talk to the people running the conference and look at the venues and so on. It was the most amazing accidental thing, and so that's kind of how it all started. But yeah,
and I've taken my children there. They enjoyed the beautiful, scenery. We've been up to that what is called the ice fields
Yes.
parkway.
Yes.
So that's one of the most spectacular things we've ever seen. And the lakes there are gorgeous. The deep blue, deep green. I mean, I have many good memories of, visits to BAM and many numerous discussions with you and all other colleagues. I mean, these are memories that will last a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a very special place. And I think I've been lucky in being able to kind of leverage, my own success and the success of the classification with this beautiful part of the country. But I think the original idea is that BANF is for everyone. It isn't big enough to have a medical school, so there won't ever be a BANF medical center, that's doing high power research and so on.
Mhm.
So that makes it a much better way to treat people even-handedly. And I guess I've always been kind of a believer in that. Most of the people I know grew up in cities. I think that's the normal way to grow up. But I grew up in a little town, a little farming town of 1,099 people. And so what did that mean? One of the things it meant is growing up, I had enormous free time. The homework in that school took almost no time at all. So unlike a lot of city dwellers, high school, where it's very competitive and it was nothing like that. I didn't encounter really quality schooling until I went to Oberlin. But yeah, it was fine. You know, I don't know how I would have been different if I had grown up in a city and gone to a really good high school. It might not have made any difference at all, right? Maybe it would, maybe not. It's hard to know. But also, I mean, I knew Kirpal Chug very well, and
Okay.
so he and I went back to his birthplace, to the home where he grew up, met his existing family, went to the Golden
Temple, yeah.
Temple.
Amritsar.
We basically sort of relived his life as part of the Video Legacy program. So I ended up with the very strong feelings that somehow India is kind of equivalent to the US or Canada in a lot of ways, in ways a lot of people don't really understand. And it's not easy to put your finger on how could that be, but you know, there's just as many people who are of great value to spend time with.
No, our best medical centers, their intellect is as you know, so I mean, it's not inferior to anybody, you know. So we do lack equipment, we do lack funds.
Yeah.
But our clinicians, they are excellent clinicians. I think they are unsurpassed in their clinical skills.
Yeah.
And this is partly because they see diseases which are not even seen, you know, in the other parts of the world.
Right.
They see late stages of disease, which you would not see here, you know, like even rheumatic heart disease, even leprosy, you know, even tuberculosis. There are things which they have seen so much of that they can just smell the disease. You know, the moment somebody comes into the room, they will tell you this guy has that, you know, and that sense comes from clinical experience. And that you can only develop in an area like that, you know, where there are no machines, no CT scans, but you depend on your basic skills, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Gillian, is there anything you would like to say?
What can I say? I was a final year resident, and one of our colleagues now, Dr. Todd Chava, was a compatriot of mine in that he was general internal medicine practitioner and decided to go back to pathology. And that's how I met Dr. Chava. And then I was crazy enough during my residency to take 4 years out to do research, basic science research in Toronto. So I was kind of off kilter with regards to my own career path. And lo and behold, 2007, I found myself in this situation with my husband and I doing long distance because he's pursuing his PhD and I'm pursuing a medical career. And all of a sudden, we was Toronto, Victoria, and then finally he was in Victoria and I was in Vancouver finishing residency. And it was Dr. Todd Chaba who said, Junar, why don't you check out Edmonton?
Uh-huh.
And
Cool.
I thought, oh, okay. Edmonton was actually our first Canadian home. I'm Filipino by birth, and I was 14 when we immigrated. So I kind of went, yeah, I loved Edmonton. In fact, I didn't want to move from Edmonton to Vancouver. People were very friendly. Sure, it was cold, but it was sunny, you know, and certainly I came back February 2007 to do an elective. And, you know, I think it met Kim then first time, you know, guru for renal pathology and transplant pathology. Unfortunately, that's not my area. So on a day-to-day basis, Kim and I don't collaborate so much in terms of cases, but now and then I have a renal cancer case with a background pathology, renal disease that I'm like, oh, I think there's something here. Kim, can you have a look? But what I can attest to is, just as another colleague who's always been positive and a source of light in our division, you know, Kim has always been there. And obviously, when Kim said January 73 was his kind of first mentorship, I was born in January 1973. So
Yeah, see.
not to rub it in, Kim, but yeah, like just I mean, we've had people retire in our division, and I can't imagine Kim retiring. I just can't. Like, please don't, not yet.
Oh,
Like,
no, I
I
don't
can
have any
handle so
plan
many
of that.
lives, you know, in the past couple of years, especially since COVID. As Kim mentioned in segment one, you know, he and I and another fellow, Dr. Mahmood, are big into the social planning and social events. And Kim is always there with a camera, great ideas, getting the arts, getting the, you know, performers come in to our special events. And, you know, I admire his connections and connectedness to others. You know, like, yeah, so in that stance, since I started in 2008 as staff, you know, Kim has always been there. And he has, like, when I have medical student comes and electives, I always introduce Kim as the man with the coolest office. So, you know, he's got the cardboard cutoffs of Sheldon, and of course the traffic lights as Ching has seen and stuff like that. But yeah, so Kim, wow, 75, amazing. And I learned so much about you today. I mean, that's the thing, like, you know, it's been 10 years, or I guess more than 10 years that I've been staff. And this was a great learning for me about things, you know, because people are busy and you don't always have the time to really get to know some of the aspects. So this was a very great honor and a privilege to know a little way more about you, you know. The Jeopardy game, I only got the chemo part. You know, oh, that was my one score. But
That's okay. Yeah.
yeah, like, I can count on Kim. I love to sing, and if I want a karaoke partner, he's there with me. And when we had our 40th, when I had my 40th birthday, he was there as well, and we're singing karaoke and taking pictures. And so yeah, so not only he has got these all accomplishments that, you know, he's known for in the internet world and the Banff and the transplant world, but on a standpoint of a colleague, I mean, he's very unique. He would be irreplaceable, which is why I'm like, oh my God, he's turning 75. Please don't tell me you're retiring, because my life career as a pathologist just would not be the same, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine retiring. You know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, and I think it's a story I told earlier in the day, but it really is necessary from a lot of points of view for people on Earth to just rediscover the basic goodness of human beings. We need this to show it to each other. And we also need it when, you know, machines are smarter than we are. They're going to have some decisions to make about us. And if that basic human goodness is so darn hard to find that you can easily find the bad stuff, and it's practically impossible to find the evidence for that basic human goodness, then we're in deep trouble. So I don't think there are very many people thinking about that. It's not a very complicated thought, but there are things that would maybe seem very odd to you, but in the artificial intelligence field, all the leaders have become vegetarian or vegan because they believe that when machines are smarter than we are, it'd be very hard to explain to them why you're killing animals for food. Yeah, so that's, and as an extension of that, even if you don't believe that's going to be an important metric, if we are not good stewards of the earth, if we are not good to each other, then why shouldn't a smarter species decide that we don't need to keep being here, right? That they can do it better. So yeah, so I think that's something worthy of pushing for. So I had the idea, and I'll just say it again, that probably what's missing here, most young people today don't listen to the radio news ever. It's just dysphoric and none of their friends do. And most celebrities and famous people also never listen to the news. So we need a new kind of news, right? That is sort of emphasizing this basic goodness of human beings. And probably young people should be designing that and giving that, and I'm sure that's possible. So we have now, I think, run out of mentoring things to talk about. Maybe it's time for some music, Mallory.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to ask though, Kim, about one more quick thing, which is when we were talking about this segment, one thing that you had added to its description was looking to the future. And I know obviously you just touched on that briefly there at the end, but was there anything else you had in mind that you were hoping to share about those next steps? Which of course are not retirement, but but what in fact is that?
Pushing the idea of transplantation morphing into regenerative medicine and transplant pathology morphing into tissue engineering pathology. Those are obvious futures to me, but most people in the field are spending zero time thinking about that. So we have a big promotional job there, getting the other people in medicine thinking along those lines. So that's kind of the medical future. The future in general, I think, we can help shape the future. Even people who think they can't help shape the future, they're wrong about that, and they can help shape the future. So I think it's important to set about shaping a positive future. One can certainly conceive of what that would be. It would be a lot better than the present of today. But we're kind of at a crossroads where as much better as that future could be from today, could also be a future that's much worse than today. And we need to take every step to make sure that doesn't happen. So, yeah. So it may seem to you odd that I spend so much time thinking about the future, but I guess the thing I'd like the most is to get other young people thinking about the future so we can keep that line of reasoning going. Yeah. So I think that's really all I needed to say about the future.
That seems very much in the spirit of mentorship, to be kind of passing the torch and inspiring the next
Yeah,
folks.
well, I saw a little bit of that happen. I mean, in a sense. So just to recap, part of what happened today is that in the first segment, Taryn presented sort of a future of human flourishing. And this is something that I had suggested 7 years ago, that this field needs young people in it to succeed. And I think, so she's kind of done that, but it took 7 years from the point I suggested that to her, emergence as the person who would do that. And I think she herself may be interested in this idea of the positive newscast for young people by young people. Or I have a feeling somebody else will take that up. So I feel happy that these things are actually moving in the hoped for direction. Yeah. Okay, so is there more music, do you think?
Sure thing. Yeah. I mean, we have more music to play if people want to hear it. And I actually wanted to make sure we get at least this next tune in, and we can share some more as well. Just because this was a request from Kim. And it was another one that, again, I was thinking, what in the world does Kim have to do with this screamy Janis Joplin blues song called Ball and Chain? That is quite a sort of a song from a place of heartache and heartbreak, and it really seems nothing like anything you just described about seeing the good in humanity.
No, I think that's what fascinated me about Tom Trabhurt's blues and Ball and Chain.
Yeah.
That I've never come remotely close to having any of those feelings. So I kind of want.
And I mean, I think that's a pretty good thing. You can enjoy it in the musical context and not have to actually find yourself wrapped up in that. And Kim, I was thinking about you when I was practicing these songs and thinking, I wonder if that's partially what draws you to Leonard Cohen as well, and him to you. And I know we were chatting about that not so long ago, why he was maybe so captured by your surrealness, as he put it, was because you guys were different, yet, wound up in the same place at the same time to have these interactions. So yeah, I think that's so interesting. And the arts and music can very often be providing us insights into those other experiences that we may not have ourselves, but we can maybe feel transported for a moment. So not to suggesting me to transport anyone all the way to heartbreak, but this song does get a little bit bluesy, and we'll pick things back up after. This is normally done with a full band, heavy drums, blaring electric guitar, and of course, my husband Brett and I are playing this as a little stripped down acoustic version. So it'll be different than Janis's original, but I would encourage you to check it out because it's a great recording. And in the meantime, we'll give you a little acoustic remake. It goes like this.
Yeah.
Sitting down by my window, honey, looking down at the rain. Sitting down at my window, looking out at the rain. Oh, something grabbed a hold on me. Feels to me like a ball and chain. Hey, that's exactly what it felt like. And I gotta see you, na 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 na. Oh, 'cause I need you. Oh, till the day that I die. Sitting down by my window, honey, looking out at the rain. Oh, sitting down at my window, looking down at the rain. Oh, and I said something grabbed a hold of me. Felt like it was just some sort of ball and chain. Well, I said, oh, 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 this cannot be, no, 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 no. I said, oh, oh, whoa. Why can't there just be someone out there who can tell me? Honey, just because I need your love. Even though it's got me down like a bowling Thank you. So no getting dragged down by balls and chains on such a wonderful day, but there's a little snippet into it. And if you listen to Janice sing it live, she goes on for about 7 minutes just speaking at the end, and it's really quite amazing. Something that was very much, capturing the energy of the live show. You can hear the crowd just going wild. And I kind of thought it's interesting because Janis Joplin and Leonard Cohen had a brief relationship of sorts. And I was speaking to Danny, who did the live painting today, and she has been having internet trouble, so can't be like she was hoping to show us the progress of where the paintings are at right now. But in between segments, she messaged me and said, oh, I used brown tones in this painting to capture like the wallpaper of the hotel that Leonard and Janice met at. And I thought, that's kind of fitting because we're playing a Janis Joplin song later tonight. So there you go. It's all interconnected. And earlier this afternoon, we had 3 different poets who were sharing some original content. And, if you do know this already about Kim, he also writes original poetry. And much of what we do as musicians, it's kind of a balance of writing lyrics that I think, in a sense, definitely could be poetic or poetry, but also composing the musical components, of course. And so I thought, since I've mostly played some cover tunes tonight, we'll share a couple of original songs with you. One of the things that Kim's mentioned several times today about not eating animals, when potentially that being something that pleases the AI in the future, and just also with some of the conversations we had in segment 1 in terms of global flourishing. I think that can't really be said without considering things like sustainability and environmental sustainability. And Kim spoke to that, and being kind of environmental stewards is part of our responsibility. And I'm going to share a song with you that I wrote a little bit about that. It's a song inspired by a story of climate action. It's called Saltwater Tears. 2, 3. He's leaving, going to find a new home. I hope I see him, find him one day out in the great unknown. Maybe once the oceans rise, we'll build wings so we can fly, or we'll start a new life underneath the catacombs. Till then I'm singing songs of forgiveness and songs of hope. We heard you saying up from your soapbox on the corner of white, all preachy claiming if we didn't listen in the end would be nigh. We all scoffed and rolled our eyes, said fuck off and get a life. But now look who's laughing, realizing you were right. Seems we've been praying to the wrong God the whole damn time. And they said beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Wish I had you tighter, loved you better, treaded lighter. Oh, mother, give us one more chance. Said I've been dreaming, and I wake up one morning and it all would be fine. Instead I'm screaming into my pillow every time I read a headline. Oh, enough is enough. Yeah, she's strong but not that tough. Seems it's finally time that she had called her bluff, and now she's crying. Saltwater tears, saltwater tears. And they said beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Wish I had you tighter, treaded lighter, loved you better. Oh, mother, give us one more chance. Oh, brother, help us understand. Oh, mother, give us one more chance to try and dry your saltwater tears. Saltwater tears.
Hey.
Thank you. So, do we have time for a tune or a couple more, do you think?
Sure. Yep. Certainly.
Alrighty. I mean, feel free if you'd rather us wrap up sooner, let us know. This next one is a song that I wrote. I shared one earlier today called Ashapattle. That was a song based on a folk tale. And this next one is another one similarly written in the spirit of that. I have a friend of mine who comes from an Irish family that is very, very superstitious and very, very steeped in a lot of old lore and legends that play a daily part of their lives still. And it's really, really interesting because I really appreciate learning about all of these different sort of traditions and beliefs. And one of them that they're quite adamant about is that of the Banshee. And you might have heard the story of the Banshee. I know that modern horror movies have made the Banshee out to be this terrifying thing that screams and screams. But in some iterations of the Banshee story, it's actually something that can be very comforting in moments of loss or grief, in the sense that the Banshee often will come to mourn the loss of a loved one, which obviously comes bearing great grief and sadness, but also acts as the kind of doorway into the afterlife. And the Banshee will sing the person home to the afterlife, is the sort of understanding in that belief. And I thought that was really comforting. And I think that that's part of why I've written a couple of these songs based on folklore. I did a songwriting portfolio on that in my master's. And I really fell into believing that oftentimes these stories we find in lore, because they're so full of imagination and creativity and openness in themselves, they can often really bring us comfort, and sort of liberate us from some of our potentially limiting beliefs that exist in the real world outside of the free imagination that we often see embodied in lore full of sea monsters and banshees. And so this is a little ballad I wrote about that, and it's called Sing Me Home. Little intro, yeah. I was just a girl running barefoot on the prairie, catching sunbeams in my hair, making wishes on the weeds. Faded sepia memories, and dancing in time with a gentle breeze. Then the seasons changed, and my eyes grew wise but weary. Time skipped by like rocks, learn to hurt and learn to care. Where's my childhood immortality? I lost my grip, or maybe it lost me. Oh, sing me home, sing me down where the roots grow. Sing me home, sing me high to the sparrows. When I was half 16, mother's sister was plucked from us, and on that October day I learned nothing gold can stay. She's up there now where the wild geese fly, and from that moment I knew someday I would die. Oh, sing me home, Stephanie told me the story of the banshee and Holden Washer Fairy, who would warn our last goodbye. Tears and souvenirs offered to the sky. Fears descending in our lullaby. Oh, sing me home, sing me down where the roots grow. Sing me home, sing me high to the sparrows. Sing me home, sing me down where the seeds are sown. Sing me, sing me, sing me home, sing me home, sing me home to the sparrows.
Yay,
Thank you.
great.
So I think Kim and I had kind of drawn up the itinerary and said we would start bidding adieu at around 9:15 and offer some time for any closing remarks. So if I'm going to squeeze in one little shorty before then, to leave us on a solstice kind of festive note. We are going to play a jazz standard for you that is called East of the Sun, and it brings to life that celestial imagery. And yeah, hopefully between segments you got some sunshine today, depending if that is, shining brightly where you are. We definitely did, and we'll be sneaking out for a dog walk after this, and it's still sunny, which is pretty amazing because it's the longest day of the year, so we're getting all of that lovely light. So here to celebrate that on the summer solstice, this is East of the Sun. East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, my dear, close to the sun in the day and near to the moon at night. We'll live in a lovely way, my dear, sharing our love in the pale moonlight, just you and I, forever and a day. Our love will not die, no, we'll keep it that way. Up above the stars we'll find a harmony of life to a lovely tune, and east of the sun and west of the moon, my dear. East of the sun and west of the moon. Oh, east of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, my dear. the sun in the day and near to the moon at night. We'll live in a lovely way, my dear, sharing our love in the pale moonlight. Just you and I, forever and a day. A love will not die, no, we'll keep it that way. Up above the stars we'll find that harmony of life to a lovely tune. Well, east of the sun and west of the moon, dear. East of the sun and west of the moon, my dear. East of the sun and west of the moon. And look, Kim has gleaming sun shining from behind him. Such great timing.
Excellent.
Thanks for letting us share some music with you folks. It's not a party without some entertainment, and I know Kim appreciates music and the arts so very much. And so thanks for having us, Kim. It's been such a pleasure to share some tunes.
Yeah, well, it's been a great day from beginning to end, and I'm so pleased with all the people who have joined us. Was quite interesting. There was a high-ranking pharma rep or official who had asked me for the links, and she was one of the few people who didn't come. I couldn't figure out what she was going to do here, so that's just as well. Yeah, but an event like this always has some uncertainties and surprises, but as you know, I like surprises. So yeah, that's great. And there'll be other significant occasions. There's the 80th birthday to think about. So Rudolf Virchow had a really, really spectacular 80th birthday, and he preceded it with a write-up in the New York Times and all the major medical journals of the day and stuff like that. So, yeah, but on the other hand, if this ends up being the greatest celebration I ever have, that's wonderful too. So either way it's good. Yeah, and so next year, 2022, we think we'll have a face-to-face celebration of the Banff classification. It'll be different from this. I'm not sure it will be better, but it'll contain some things we haven't been able to do today. So anyway, thank you all. I'm thinking, particularly for people in the East Coast, that it might be appreciated if we let you go just a few minutes early, because it's like 11:19 where you are. You're probably thinking that
Your troopers.
yeah, it's no longer work time for these guys at 11:19 in the evening. Yeah.
As a med student, I would stay up until 2 a.m.
It's nice to listen to some music before you sleep. So thank you, Mallory. And
Our pleasure.
Thank you for making us a part of this celebration. And we look forward to many more years of leadership, Kim.
Sure.
80th, 85th, 90th, so on. All right. We make it a 5-year plan.
Why not?
You're going to have to add like amazing party thrower to your business card shortly.
Yeah.
And I was going to say as well, Kim, I'm sure everyone would appreciate once you do get the photos of the paintings once they're completed, circulating them to the guests, because I'm sure by now everyone's curious how those turned out.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that very much, and I will share them with you. Yeah. So anyway, thanks again for being part of a very enjoyable day. And I hope you also
it was very nice to meet all of your mentees.
Yeah, well, they are really remarkable people, and yeah, I'm quite honored to have come in contact with them. So that's just the way it is, you know. Anyway, so okay, well, good night, everybody. Sit
Happy
tight.
birthday, Kim.
Happy birthday.
Thank
For
you.
Happy
Father's
birthday.
Day. Have a great
Birthday,
evening,
Dr. Solez.
everybody.
Bye bye. Thank
Awesome.
you. Yeah.